Okay, you're listening to episode 228. One of the reasons this episode came to be, you guys probably remember Benjamin Franklin's quote. He said, "Early to bed, early to rise, makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise." And so as we venture into 2020, healthy, wealthy, and wise is a theme that we're trying to bring. Of course, we talk a lot about money, the wealthy side of things, but we also want to talk about living a healthy life and wisdom. And one of the neat things from my perspective is I get to meet so many neat people, and I try to be a good steward of what's being shared with me, and that I try to share it with you guys. But this year I want to feature some of you. I want to feature people that have recently retired and just let them tell their story, and so that we can all learn from one another. And I'm excited to bring my friend Mike onto the show with me. Mike, welcome.
Hey, thank you, Jason.
Yeah,
great to be here.
Oh, I am glad. How'd you like those jokes this morning?
Those are hard to top. Pollo.
Pollo. Well, I thank you. So, Mike, we're just going to have a casual conversation. You retired recently, and so I want people to get to hear from you what that experience was like. But before we get into the retirement side of things, I want to hear a little bit of your origin story, and I thought we could go back to maybe your college days, and you could just tell me a little bit about, that. Let's start there.
Yeah. All right. So college, I went to the University of Washington, studied engineering, met my wife in the second year in the dormitories. Not my wife at the time, but of course, but we were married 2 years after I got out of college, 1 year after she did.
So you guys dated for a couple of years?
Yes. And then 7 years later, we had some children, two of them 2 years apart. And so in that period of time, University of Washington Engineering, I did a work-study program, worked for the U.S. Geological Survey during surveyings, worked 6 months, went to school 6 months, so it took 5 years to get through a 4-year college degree, civil engineering.
Wow. Did you enjoy that?
Very much so.
And but the career path that you took we'll get into your career in a minute, but kind of different than what you went to college for. So that's
only on the surface. I think underneath it very much has been fairly linear, because I went from engineering to a business degree after a couple of years as an engineer. Came out of business school and started as a management consultant to the architects and engineers that I had been one of them.
So it made a lot of sense from that standpoint.
And then for a while, we added insurance, professional liability insurance, to the consulting, and that ended up growing more rapidly. But throughout that entire period, and even now today in retirement, I'm back to the consulting after having sold the insurance side. But the client base has always been
engineering
architects
and
engineers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So now tell me, you guys, dated for 4 years and you met your wife. Tell me a little bit more about that. How'd you guys meet, and what just help me unpack that relationship a little bit as you guys.
I'm a little reluctant, but I might as well dive in.
Okay.
She knocked on my door. She was collecting money for a kegger. I gave her the money, and then she told me that they needed someone of legal age to buy the keg.
Oh, no.
And not really understanding sunk costs or sunk, I dove right in. And
is that right? So that was the first time. That was the first time.
Not the first time we met, maybe, but the first time I was aware that I was attracted to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys had a couple of kids a couple of years after that?
7 years after being married. Yeah.
7 years after being married. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Boy, our stories are kind of similar in that way. Becky and I, it was about 8 years after we were married before we had our first kid. And so I want to ask you, along that journey, you guys had some important career decisions to make. Tell me a little bit how you made those decisions and what you prioritized as you were, what that looked like for you.
Yeah, I think early I was very attracted to the fact that she was a CPA, and I wanted a wife, a spouse that would be professional, have a professional career. It was important to me. And it certainly was extremely helpful going through business school. She continued to work. She provided a good deal of my support during that period of time. And then, when we were out and both working, things happen a lot more quickly with two incomes than one. Some of the biggest decisions we made, though, is that after we had our second child, she decided, and I supported thoroughly, that she quit working.
Okay.
So I don't want to get the years kind of confusing way back, but so we had been married, had our 2 children. That was about 9 years in. She had been working for all that time, and then resigned from working at all and took care of the kids, participated in the PTA, and then ultimately, as you know, evolved into being a volunteer treasurer for a local food bank here.
Wow.
So she still continues to use her accounting skills throughout that entire time. She was my not only accountant, but my critical backup.
Yeah.
and we had someone who was doing the bulk of the load, but she did a lot of the tax compliance and the payroll, and was overlooking and helping my internal accountant make sure things got done right. So,
How many years have you guys been married?
I think 40's coming up.
Okay.
I don't want to jump it, but it's 39.
Okay. I get people get in trouble sometimes. I maybe shouldn't ask that. I should have set you up and let you know ahead of time. 2 kids, and the kids are doing well.
32 and 30, and
wow.
yes, great. One's a nurse practitioner and almost a nurse practitioner in the midwife program at Seattle University.
Cool.
The other has been working for Backroads, and now is deciding to make his commitment to live in Denver and looking for employment there in Denver.
Okay, cool. Tell me what wisdom, if you could share with people who have kids right now, they're raising kids. It sounds like your kids are doing okay. They've turned out well. Any words of advice for us parents that still have younger kids at home? My son's 14, my daughter's 12. Anything that you could maybe share with me you think would be valuable for me to know as...
I guess I had a philosophy. I'm always amazed when a child grows up and does exactly what their parents do. Oh. I'm surprised because I'd always encourage my children to follow their own dreams and their own hopes and focus on the sports that they were good at. And I see a little bit of following in my footsteps, but it's certainly not in career choices or in the kind of the major choices of what they do with their life and time. And I've never felt the need to have someone follow me, but also wonder when I see it, I don't always see that someone was required to do that, but then just chose to do that. And I don't think I had that kind of relationship with my children. Very proud of them, but also very pleased that they've chosen their own lives.
Their own path, yes. So the wisdom would be then just encourage them to pursue what it is they want to pursue. Don't try to pigeonhole them into following in the same career.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I would also say that, actions speak louder than words, and no matter what you say to your children, how you behave will be the greater indicator of what they learn about character.
I was just having breakfast with a friend of mine the other day, and he says one of his favorite quotes, he says this all the time, he says, "Your actions are so loud that I can't hear what you're saying."
It's best sometimes to just stop listening and just start watching.
Yeah.
Watch my hands, not my mouth, is one of my sayings.
I'll watch my hands, not my mouth. Okay, so now tell me about your very first job. What did you do for work the very first time you decided to enter the workforce?
I lied about my age at 15 and got a job as a night stalker. That's putting cereal and facing cereal on grocery store shelves. That was a very short-lived job, but then moved quickly over to busboy at the Italian Spaghetti House and Pizzeria in Lake City in Seattle.
Wow.
And rose to the height of head busboy over the course of about 3 years.
Really? 3 years
Yeah.
you worked as the head busboy?
Yeah, and then off to college, and that's when I switched to jobs. Started working at the end of the first quarter as a drafting teacher's assistant at University of Washington. At the end of the first year, got that U.S. Geological Survey job, and then worked half-time there, half-time off. Came over to an engineering consulting firm of what used to be a very well-known firm, CH2M Hill. They've been acquired recently by Jacobs, but they ultimately grew to tens of thousands of people. I was there when they were about 5,000 people, I think.
Wow.